works, it better work, because if it doesn't, I'm gonna cry. um, let's see. All right, we are live. Looks like we are live. And we're just gonna wait just a few minutes to get some people in the door.
Cool.
Yay, it worked on the first time. All right, Derek, you're in the Facebook live stream.
I am.
That's so terrible.
This is so
technology to my students. It's terrible.
Oh.
Here comes Aaron Roth Thomas.
Oh, yay.
Hey, Aaron. And hello, Aaron Sensenig.
Technology to my students. It's terrible.
This is so
Technology to my
Okay, I'm on.
Cool. Yay, we're all on. All right, we're gonna just wait a few more seconds before we start. Welcome everybody who's watching right now. Aaron Thomas says, "Hey y'all."
Hey y'all. Hey Aaron.
Oh man.
Oh, hi, Jonathan.
Oh, Jonathan.
Very good. Yay.
Cool.
All right. Let's slowly but surely, let's go ahead and get started. So I will say that this Zoom is particularly exciting for me because Greiner started as a 4-week experiment that turned into something much more, and something that has been so meaningful and a really strong pillar of our organizational mission. We have seen tremendous growth and advancement in these students in the last year. When we started this initiative, going to Greiner Exploratory Arts Academy twice a week for about 3 hours each, an article had just been released on the Dallas Morning News and also the Advocate and several different other places about sort of the inequality and the inequity of enrollment of students at Booker T. Washington High School. And so our initial goal was to make these students grow and make them grow and get better, so much so that when they applied to Booker T, those that wanted to apply, they would get in without a doubt because they were so good, because we would give them the opportunities. And I think that looking back on it this year and looking back on the initiatives this year, I would definitely say that we have achieved that goal much more so than before. And rather than me talking about it, Bethany, can you just sum up, or anyone really, can we sort of talk about what this year has been like at Greiner? Because there's so much to talk about here, so many different aspects, whether it's the students or the performances. I mean, everything has been really, really great and really, really exciting. So anyone want to start?
Miss Ring.
Miss Ring.
Yeah, Miss Ring.
So this year has been really great. I've loved every moment of it. Even with the craziness that's going on right now currently, our kids are still doing a great job finding motivation and doing some really great things. But I'd say having the voice lessons this year has been a game changer for our students who are pursuing that music goal of going into music, continuing to high school seriously, continuing into college seriously. And so it's really given them quite an advantage that they've never had before. I've seen so much growth in their voices, in their confidence, in their personalities, in their comfort. And I really do think that is owed a lot to the private lessons, just kind of breaking these kids out of their shell a little bit and giving them some really, really unique experiences. So I know that they have loved their voice lesson times. I know that they look forward to those times when Derek and Katrina are in the classroom coming. If there's ever a weird day, they're like, wait, are they not coming today? I'm like, no, it's a fire drill day. I'm sorry. They always get really bummed out when they're not there, but it's been a game changer. We had a lot of kids accepted or waitlisted into Booker T so far. So
Good.
Very good. Anyone else want to add anything to that?
I'll go next. It was a really terrifying thing that first day that I walked in there. I didn't know what to expect. I just kept telling myself, I'm a singer, I'm not a teacher, I don't know what I'm gonna do. And then I fell in love with the process of it. And Derek and I kind of clung to each other at first in fear. And then we just realized that there's a joy, and I mean, these kids are so effervescent, and they would just jump into it, and then the next minute they'd be making you cry with their passion, and then they'd be doing something silly in middle school to remind you that they're kids. And it was just such an exciting journey. And to hear them right before we all went into our shelter in place, to hear that choir, it was just absolutely mind-blowing to know that we had traveled from August until then with them, and the growth and the confidence and the choir that grew from this little group of middle school kids to a solid, amazing choir, and every grade. It was just super, it was an amazing experience. And I didn't have to feel like a teacher. I felt like part of this team that was just, it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun.
Very cool. Yeah, I will say just the stark difference between the fall concert and the winter concert was just unbelievable. And also the growth of the students throughout the year and their willingness. I mean, even I worked with them a few times, and seeing their willingness to learn was just really, really inspiring. I've never quite seen something like that before. And when you get that kind of student, it's like, you know, the sky's the limit with what you can do with them and the places that you can take them. And I think that's a testament to them. It's a testament to how passionate they are doing choir and really valuing the art, but also really willing to learn from it. It's been a really, really great experience, I think, across the board. I have to say that one of my favorite aspects this year has been, because I have been talking for a while about, the creative concert programming, and talking about how it's not as hard as it looks, and it's not as crazy as what it seems. And a lot of public school teachers, I remember I did a presentation about this in Missouri, at the Missouri ACDA convention. And a lot of educators were like, well, this is way too complicated. There's no way we could do this in our classroom. But especially in the fall, to be able to partner with the art department, not just to draw what we were singing, but to animate what we were singing and then project it during the concert, was so cool for me to see. It was so cool.
Parents are blown away too.
Yeah, the parents were blown away, but I think most importantly, I think it made the students feel like they really had created something special. And it wasn't, and it made them feel like they weren't just doing music, but they were also part of the art form, because some of those people that were singing, some of the kids that were singing, were also making the art. So hands down, like, some of my favorite experiences at Greiner this year, for sure. So let's talk a little bit about the success that we've had this year. Before, and this is like pre-COVID-19. We have had a significant, we saw, I think, Bethany, am I correct in saying that there was like one student that got into Booker T last year, or two?
Two.
So first off, one of the biggest successes that we've had this year is, I don't know the exact current numbers. Bethany, can you tell us the exact current numbers of students that got in this year?
I believe as of right now, we're at 6 confirmed from the students I've heard back from. And then at least 5 on the wait list. So we're just kind of waiting to hear from that.
So 6 confirmed and 5 on the wait list. That's a total of 11 students that have got in this year versus 2 last year, which is amazing. That is like more than 100% increase in just a year. But like, let's not stop there. UIL, how did UIL go?
Really, really successful year. Last year, 1 choir got sweepstakes. This year, 3 of our 4 choirs received sweepstakes, which is the highest honor you can get.
Amazing.
Yay.
So, and I mean, judges went as far as saying things like, I've heard high school choirs sing this and y'all sing it. This is the best performance I've ever heard of this song, like period, like on judge critique sheets. So
yes,
like I was just like giddy with excitement getting to read those words to those kids. And like, I know Katrina and Derek were there when I was reading it to women's choir, and they were hearing themselves for the first time from the UIL recording and like hearing these critiques, and they were all like, we're so good.
mm-hmm.
And that one judge said that people need to hear you sing this song. That was the most meaningful comment. It was like, it wasn't that you did this song so well. It was everyone out there needs to hear you guys sing this song. So that was pretty amazing. And then I just remember the boys too, because boys we all know are a little trickier at that age, but they were like, Miss Ring, play that part, Miss Ring, play that song, Miss Ring. And they were so excited and giddy. It was just such a joy.
Yeah, that's amazing.
One of the big successes to me also, like without even thinking about like statistics and things, are just, we talk about growth and seeing how these kids band together also to learn their music, seeing how they take the instruction from Miss Ring on sight reading and then use that to work with each other. And to me, that's also a giant success. It's one of the things that crafts a better musician also.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's been one of the biggest treats, is to see like these small moments that you can say we've taught, but that we've sort of just like encouraged and let them also learn how to learn on their own. That to me is one of the biggest successes also, and I think that's really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Derek and Katrina, can you talk a little bit about what the year was like, from how things have changed from September at Greiner to basically pre-COVID, right before pre-COVID?
Well, so I started when we were just doing that 4-week program last year. I was part of that too. So when I walked in, the 8th graders that I met were last year's 7th graders. So I already knew a majority of the kids that I was going to be working with, except for the 6th graders who just moved in. And so there was already just like a crazy amount of obviously physical growth. You're like, I don't even recognize you. How do you grow a foot in a summer? But then, like, I don't, it's seeing I'm thinking about the men's choir specifically. The women in their choirs have always been very team oriented, but a lot of the growth that I've seen, the word of choice for the men's choirs is focus. And being able, Katrina's laughing, Miss Ring's laughing, like, but we'll have like we'll have a breakthrough and then look over and wonder, like, why are they shooting, hair scrunchies that belong to someone else at each other? but to see them actually grow and focus too as young adults, to realize, even when times are more difficult because so and so's doing something out the door or whatever, to be able to sit down and say, no, I've got to do this, and do their solfege and be able to work with someone else and figure out their sight reading is really cool. And I've seen that steady growth throughout. So that's I don't know, that's one thing that sticks out to me.
One of the cool things that I got to see was just, it was so humbling how little they expected and how grateful they were for the smallest things that we did. So when we did any little thing, they would just be so eager to try it and to incorporate it. And then and like Derek was saying, just seeing them be this combination of like future choral person, or, you know, building into this choir persona, and then this goofy middle school kid at the same time. But there would be times when they'd be acting like people that we sing with now. Like we're like the basses, you know, they were like, I know this part, I got it down, I don't have to work, you know, I'm cool. And we're like, oh my gosh, you act like a lot of basses that I sing with, you're acting all like boss of those low notes. And then the day that we did the range test, and this one kid, he blew us out of the water with his range. We're like, where did you get this man's range and this little boy? But he wasn't a little boy, he's a huge middle school boy. And I mean, it was just, it was so neat to like celebrate with them, and to see how eager and excited they were to celebrate with us these victories, and to be able to talk like future peers with them, be able to talk the talk with them and know that they got it, and yet at the same time they turn around and be a silly middle school kid again. It was just really humbling and exciting, and it reminded me of the best part of learning music.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Very cool.
Very cool. All right, so let's move on to what the situation looks like now. Obviously, you know, coronavirus hit and DISD schools closed. So Bethany, can you give us an update on sort of what's going on right now with the kids, and how we're doing in terms of, or like what activities we're doing currently with the choir?
Yeah. So, sorry, I moved my chair. It's just so ironic. When me and Sam sat down last summer, we had planned to do a concert in March titled Songs of Survival, not knowing that any of this was going to be happening, not knowing that it was going to be such an important thing, and such a relevant issue. And so this whole semester leading up to the shutdown of school, we have been talking about songs of survival and how people have gotten through really difficult things by using music as a way to process things and a way to come through things on the other side, keeping your sanity and keeping beauty present in your life, even when things don't feel very beautiful. But being able to surround yourself with something beautiful almost puts you on an island where things kind of melt away for a moment in time. And how people have used music to get through things, whether it was war or disease or political things or cultural difficulties, or you name it, people have used music to survive it. And so the first week of school was just really doing lots of journaling with the kids about what does that mean? How relevant is our concert and what we are doing and what we've been talking about? And just kind of like piecing together like this idea that we've been talking about and how it's like very real life right now, and how we could have never predicted that this would be such a relevant issue. And so the kids just shared so much with me. I had a student specifically, his name's Jorge, and he's just one of the most gentle souls. I know Derek and Drew are like, I asked the kids, I said, you know, what is your song of survival right now? What's the song that you've been listening to that has really gotten you through? And he replied, he journaled back, he said his song of survival right now is Yesterday by the Beatles, because he wants to live every day going forward with no regrets and not taking advantage of what he used to know as normal. And so remembering yesterday and that it was good, but also remembering that moving forward, he's going to try and make every day better, so he doesn't have those regrets of a yesterday. And I just thought that that was such an interesting, beautiful take on like, and this is coming from an 8th grade boy's mind. And I just think he's one of our Booker T kids. He got into Booker T. And I just love their minds. I love how beautiful they have been. They have encouraged me in so many ways with their journal entries and their writing and their goofiness and their Netflix suggestions and all the things, random things they've told me about. But now we're starting to really move into getting kind of a little bit more serious about what we're doing. Where for this last 6 weeks, we're going to start a Broadway project, and everybody's going to be working on a Broadway musical number. They were given 7 choices that they could choose from, and 3 for guys, 3 for girls, and 1 that's just neutral for whoever. And so they are going to be working on that. And we've got recordings happening right now of the piano parts. And a lot of the kids are going to be working in private lessons with Derek and Katrina. Some of the kids are a little bit more shy about that. And so they're just going to be doing group weekly check-ins with me if they didn't want the private lessons. But we're just going to have this whole project, and they're going to get into a character, and they're going to use their creative side, and they're going to do character study and put themselves into the emotions of another person and talk about empathy and all of these things that we can kind of dive into about what it means to play a role and to sing a role and to be expressive with your body and your face. And because kids always love doing the Broadway, the pop stuff. It's always a really fun thing. It's what we always end our year with. So I wanted to keep that fun, upbeat, creative piece, but we're just going to have to do it more on an individual level. We are going to attempt doing a virtual choir, and kind of try and maybe bring to life some pieces from our Songs of Survival concert. Who knows how that's going to turn out? I know that some of my kids have great internet, some of them have terrible internet, some of them have recording access, some of them don't. And so we're just going to do our best and try and bring to you guys a little bit of that. And so we're going to start working on that project as well next week. So starting next week, we're going to start getting a little bit more down into the nitty-gritty singing. It's just taken a lot of time trying to like find everyone and get everyone online and figure out where everyone is and how everyone's doing, and like, are you okay? Is your family okay? Do you have a computer? Do you have internet? Do you have toilet paper? Do you have food? Like, that's been kind of where we've been these last few weeks. And now we're gonna get to kind of move into the music and have some fun with that.
So just on that note, how are the students doing? Are all of them okay? Did they all got a Chromebook from DISD? Do they all have internet connections? Do they have all the resources that they need?
Yes, so they officially all have a Chromebook now, or should. Dallas ISD finally was able to get hotspots for every kid that requested one as of this week. So as of this week, everyone should be connected. However, I mean, I've had kids email me like 3 days later, like, sorry, I haven't turned anything in, our power's been out, or our internet's been down, or my mom's phone isn't working, or the computer battery, something happened, things like that. And you just have to be okay with that, because that's life right now. But they're okay. They hate online school. They miss each other so much. They miss just being around each other. So, but they're okay. They're okay.
Very good. Derek and Katrina, as we enter this period of starting voice lessons over the internet, what are some of the challenges that you see going into this process that you're like most nervous for with these Greiner kids?
Do you want to start?
It's the technology. I don't want to fail these kids for the short amount of time that I have them. I know that once we get on there, the hardest part for me will probably be keeping myself to the time limit, because I'll just be like, oh, let's just do this. Let's do this. Let's have fun. Let's do this. And I'll be like, oh, shoot, here it's like 3 hours later. But I'm actually a little concerned about the tech part working, because I am not the most savvy. But you know what? These times have kind of required that we all step it up and put on our big boy pants and big girl pants and just deal with it. So I've gotten a lot more savvy than I ever thought I would be, simply out of necessity. And I think that's all we're all going to be. And I don't want the technology to get in the way of the musical opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. My biggest fear on that is that first lesson. is just making sure that no one's gypped for time, trying to make sure that up. There's the idea that, you know, not everybody has keyboards or pianos at home. They have the recording tracks, but depending on what device they're listening to, it might be difficult to go back to that exact spot to work on something with the music. Especially if they're doing Broadway pieces, that can be kind of tricky because the text is often interwoven into the music, so finding the right cut or the entrance could be tricky. But I think that's just part of the learning curve and part of the challenge and fun of this whole adventure. Yeah.
Yeah, I certainly think that, as I've said in many of the other live streams, if any of our listeners have been sort of tuning in on a weekly basis, I do think that this is a recurring theme that no matter what, when all this is said and done, we're definitely going to be, we will never go back to the way that we used to be. I think things are going to be a lot more online. Just today, actually, what was just absolutely amazing is Travis Scott, the rapper, you know, wasn't live streaming. He released a music video on Fortnite, and people actually were able to attend the music release on the game, like playing the game. And so that was like a new way of like experiencing a concert. And I think that as we sort of move and are in this crisis and in this pandemic, people are going to get more and more creative. I mean, that in and of itself, Travis Scott releasing music and creating this whole like universe within Fortnite. I mean, like, that's amazing. It's like so resourceful and so innovative and so different. And I think that we as an organization also, and as a school, you know, with DISD and Greiner kids, we're only going to be moving. I think we're going to have much more live streaming. We're going to have much more online presence moving forward. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that's a really good thing. I mean, you know, when you're on here, all of a sudden you can have people from all over the world tuning in. And I'm sure that the video quality and the audio quality is only going to get better from here. I think we've identified the problems, we've identified the things that need to get better, and I think it's going to happen. So it's a very exciting time. I do think it's a very, very exciting time because we're going to have more capability to give music and to reach more people than ever before. And I think that's only a good thing, especially when we're talking about these Greiner kids, because I mean, I always say, or I have said that these kids in the short time that I've been there have taught me more than I feel like I can give them. And I think that, you know, the more that we can spread that, the more that we can do that, the better that it will be. To answer the question, I think for me, the most weird, the hardest part about this is going to be figuring out how to make a virtual choir. And for those of our listeners that are not sure what a virtual choir is, a virtual choir is literally when a student records him or herself singing by themselves, uploads the video, and they have the track in their ears, so they know like the timing of when to sing what word and what note. And then, you know, we piece it all together, we master it, and then we release it online. So that's going to be like a kind of a really interesting thing that we're going to go through in the next couple of weeks. I'm excited and also nervous to see that. Yeah, right. That's
I'll
right.
say though that, you know, innovation has been the hallmark of the Verdigris Ensemble, but I feel like the most amazing lesson that we're all learning right alongside these kids is giving grace and allowing for mistakes within the scope of creativity and imagination. And what a valuable lesson. I mean, it's a hard lesson, the way they're having to learn it and the way we're all having to learn it, but especially for kids. But what a strong next generation of musicians we're creating by pure happenstance, just through the very act of learning how to give grace, because what else can we do?
Yeah, absolutely.
One of the things that I always like stick with, or like just is very close to my heart, is this one phrase that sometimes I use sarcastically, but in this case, I've always believed that like restrictions breed creativity. some of the greatest things that we know now came about because things were difficult in times, and they didn't have access to the stuff they normally do. So now we can't meet in person. We're limited by technology in many ways. How do we then turn out this art? And I'm excited that this is the generation that's going to grow learning from this at the start and learn how to be creative and become these new, strong artists right from the get-go. So to me, it's unfortunate, but it's also sort of exciting in a light to be able to come out of this and see what art has spawned, what growth has been made.
And I think it's also been really interesting to see the students who have really taken this challenge on and just become very independent and like decided that they're going to stand on their own 2 feet and that they want to keep their music lives going, even though like really this would be a very easy thing to like slip or like let go, or like, oh, it's just choir online, you know, I got to do my math assignment first, or, you know, but it's become very evident, like the kids who really do want to like become an independent, stronger person through this. And it's been pretty cool to see that, yeah.
Absolutely. We have a question in the audience from Lori Latham saying, what exercises do you begin with a new student? And just as a reminder, or just a little bit of background for Lori and for any of our other listeners, we've been outreaching to these students for the entire year, twice a week for since the fall. So we actually know these students quite well. But the question still stands, what exercises are we going to do and how are we going to do them? And there are several ways to go about it. We've talked about a couple. I'll just say what I've thought about, and that is we pre-record piano tracks of warm-ups and maybe some of the tracks of the music, and we send them to the students. The students practice with those tracks, and then we workshop. So the student will actually on their end start playing the track. They'll sing the exercise or the music, and then Derek and or Katrina will give feedback based on that. But I want to sort of hand this over to Katrina and Derek and ask, have you guys thought about what particular exercises that you could do online, and preserving sort of the quality and sort of also how you're going to give feedback, et cetera, et cetera?
Oh yeah. So what? Yes, song repertoire, but I also think just technical exercises. Those are things that even a pitch pipe or things that you can just practice on, vocal agility, things like that, on your own with just some arpeggios and things. But sitting during a lesson, I would have the keyboard here, and whatever pitch, probably changes slightly when it goes through my computer, it comes out. But they can still sing along to that, and we can work on things like evenness of vibrato, that vocal agility tuning, which might be kind of tricky with the technology, but we can address that further with the tracks. Those would be things that I would look at technically, but then when they're in rep, I would also do much of what Ms. Ring was saying, and that is look at the startings of what is it to be a character and to fill into a role, and what is stage presence, and how does that differ in a solo setting like these voice lessons versus a choral setting, and how are they similar? And I would approach things like that as well.
I will just say that in a private lesson like this, there is a safety that you can sort of, it's just you and me. And what I have always brought to music and what I'll be open with these kids about is connecting with the character and connecting in some kind of emotional way. And what can I do with my voice, my face, my body to show that this song is not just a song that I'm singing, but a song that I'm giving. And so that's going to be something that I try to connect with the kids. And I think they're already steps ahead and ready to go with that. So I'm pretty excited to see what they've picked and what we'll do, and what kind of emotions we're going to be dealing with and what pieces we'll be working with. But it'll really be about that emotional connection, because that's how you move people. Yes, quality of music. Yes, quality of getting up and singing and moving those muscles every single day. Any muscle, it needs to be worked out, the voice. But that emotional connection is how you touch people and reach people. And it's what people need more than ever. So.
Absolutely.
With these lessons too, I tried the Broadway songs that we were doing. I tried to pick songs that could have a really good connection to like nowadays. So like we did Castle on a Cloud from Les Mis, which is like a song about escaping reality and going to that place of beauty. We are doing Seize the Day from the Newsies, which is about, you know, taking advantage of every moment. We're doing No One is Alone from Into the Woods, which is all about, you know, you're not alone in this time, even though you might feel like it. There's always someone there with you, helping you, guiding you, leading you. We're doing Home from Beauty and the Beast. Home is where the heart is, you know, even though it might not feel normal right now. We're doing Edelweiss from The Sound of Music, because that whole music is about using music to survive, that musical in general. And the kids really connected with that musical as well. So there's been a lot of really great musical songs that are out there that I've just been so like inspired by, and it was so much fun choosing the rep for the kids. And I think the kids are going to have a lot to work with to connect it to what they're going through right now, and to kind of bring in that character to where they are. As I know that one of our parents asked, is there anything other than Zoom that they might need for these voice lessons? And I was talking to an amazing voice teacher. Her name's Terry Prescott, and she's been giving lessons this entire time. And she said for the most successful voice lessons, the best setup that your student can have is a track on one device. And then if they have like a phone or something, that they can have their Zoom meeting on. And using headphones, like the little iTunes headphones with the little like kind of microphone on the wire. She said that's been like the most clear, realistic sound that she's gotten. So I know not all kids might have that, but if parents are interested in that's the most successful as far as just the quality of sound, therefore the quality of feedback from the instructors have been better. So
awesome.
Cool.
On that note, Katrina and or Derek, do you have anything to add about that in terms of any additional items that the students should have going
Pencil.
in? Oh my gosh, yes, a pencil. Always a pencil.
Oh, the pencil. Not a
Not
pencil. Yeah, I mean, there are lots of other small little things. There was a stroke of genius that Miss Ring had in the class when she brought out a bag of peppermints to find the right jaw placement to have.
I do remember that. That
So
was amazing.
There's some I don't know, miscellaneous props that may come up, like tennis balls and whatnot, if we're working on technique, but just a pencil, I'd say.
Yeah.
And an open
Sounds good.
mind. So yeah.
Yeah, we're very, very excited about this. And I think honestly, you know, we just kind of have to start it, and then we're going to learn a lot as we go through it. But I think that's, like I said, I think that's a good thing. I think that's going to give us a lot of tools to be able to use online voice lessons and virtual choirs, etc., in the future in a really positive way. So very good. We started this podcast. We started this live stream with, talking about the success of students and then sort of what we're going to do. And I really want to end it on a really positive note, because I do think that this initiative is really something special, something that we have all come to love, and that anyone that has been a part of it, whether it's the photographer or the videographer or, you know, the students or, you know, just have totally come to love. And it's a really, really great initiative. We're really, really excited about it, and we're really excited to continue doing it. My final question to you all is, what have the students taught you in this process? Who wants to start?
Okay.
Oh, you go. Okay, I'll start. They have taught me that I need to remember that there's always this joy and this connection to the music, and staying humble and staying connected to that alley that leads you to joy when you approach this music like they do. And just the way they come at it, they're so humble, they expect so little in the instruction, and they give back 100-fold. That's how every musician should approach any piece of music if they want to just blow the world away with it, because I have been humbled again and again by how humbly they would approach and how much they would give. And so for me, the biggest lesson has been approach everything with a sense of gratitude for how much I have, for how much I have in my knowledge and in my base and in everything to move forward, and how the act of gratefulness is such a musical thing, and it makes the music that much more amazing and listenable. So they've really taught me a lesson in musicianship.
I've learned a lot. When I think back to showing up, I guess maybe a year ago or over a year ago now, when we were just kind of doing this as an experiment, I never really considered myself a kid person. I have friends and stuff that like with kids, I'm always kind of like, And when I walked into W.E. Greiner and I saw these choir kids, I saw a bunch of very young adults. I saw a lot of people that had this drive, had this want for more knowledge, for more ability, for more connection, and just now finding some of these tools. And so when you ask like what I've learned, it's difficult to say because there's so much to unpack in learning everything from occasionally slowing things down so that I can explain something, and then seeing it like take off like wildfire. There's a student that had never sung Latin before and asked, I can't get these words right, how do I pronounce this? And we get through it, and then all of a sudden now she has to go tell somebody else, and they work on it together. And then eventually, before I realized it, I helped one person, the altos just got it because altos do that. But but being able to see that sort of ripple effect on just slowing down and being able to explain something, but then also just watching, I don't know, I when I think about what I've learned, I think about stories, about small little moments, like when somebody was one of the 8th graders was kind of trying to push buttons, and we were singing a song in Flanders Fields, and I mentioned that it was about veterans and how there's people in cemeteries and that they've died, we should honor them, and he said that sounds very American, and was trying to like kind of, and he, I was like, you know what, I get what you're saying, you're correct. This is actually a Canadian poem, but you're correct, and it's still North American. And I understand what you're saying by saying that, and I think it's a valid opinion on your piece. And from there, that piece from the bases always felt like it had more. It felt like it had solidified because he felt ownership on that, and I see the importance of being able to feel a connection to a piece and have ownership on something like that. So I don't know, when I talk about what I've learned, there's a lot, but I think about those small stories because sometimes those smaller moments to me just open my eyes to much bigger things. So that's in a nutshell a little bit of eye-opening experience for me.
I think for me personally, they've taught me to be a stronger person. I had a very charmed childhood. I grew up with very normal circumstances in a very middle-class home with very supportive everything, with siblings that were nice to me. And, I grew up like very oblivious to the hardships that life can throw at you. And I wouldn't say all of our students are going through very difficult, hard times. I know that we got kids on every level of the spectrum in our program, but the amount of life that some of our students have seen that I personally haven't had to endure is really amazing. And that they can still be such beautiful people and so strong has made me want to be a stronger, better person for them. Because even though I haven't gone through some of the intensity of life that they have, I still want to be a person that's strong enough for them to lean on. Because they do need someone to lean on sometimes. Sometimes they need that person outside of their family. They need to just talk to someone. They need a choir teacher is not just a musician, but we're also counselors and band-aids and nurses and confidants and all sorts of things. Because I think kids feel comfortable talking to you because they are the most expressive version of themselves around you. And so I think that I have learned to be a stronger human because of the strength that I see in them and how they don't let all those little things grind them down the way I sometimes have in the past. And so seeing them being so resilient and so strong has been a real inspiration to me to be more positive and more aware of the good things in my life and to not take things for granted that I have, because they're so grateful for the little things and their demeanors and their personalities and their character and all of the little things that make them unique it's just such a beautiful, inspiring thing to see, regardless of the things that they're going through. They're resilient. And so I learned that from them.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Just a really quick thing, and then we have a question in the audience. For me, I think the biggest thing, I mean, there's so many things that I've learned just watching and hearing secondhand and being a part of the Greiner experience and the outreach. I think the biggest thing is, when we grow up, we're put into we have a lot of responsibility. We have a lot of, life happens, we have family, we have very heartbreaking situations, things that hurt, things that are fine, and it sort of solidifies you a little bit into adulthood. And as adults, we constantly strive, or at least for me, like as an artist, the times that I'm most creative are the times I'm most childlike, when I ask stupid questions and do stupid things. And this experience at Greiner has reminded me not to always take life so seriously, but also it's reminded me that like we all need a little bit of middle schooler in all of us to ask really dumb questions and to do really dumb things, because that's what creates like really innovative and creative things at the end of the day. It all comes from a place of like this childlike state. So that has been a really, really great thing for us. Robert Ward in our comments section asked, he says, so let's imagine we all have to teach online next fall as well. Assuming right now we are triaging the situation, how do we move to a genuine experience online? Yikes, ? Anyone want to respond to that?
I would have turned to Miss Ring, because my captain.
Honestly, I think having choir online is hard, because it is just so difficult to have a choir experience when everyone's internet speed is different and everyone's hearing you slower or faster and singing slower or faster. Like it's not a real possibility to be able to do choir as a group online together at the same time, like live stream version. So I honestly think that this is a really great opportunity for us to make those individual connections, have those one-on-one voice lessons, really care for the student on an individual vocal level, working and building that technique. There is, I see no wrong in taking that first if it's 6 weeks, if it's the first 2 months, I don't know. If it comes down to that, I hope it doesn't, because I miss having choir. But if it does, I mean, we're just going to not squander the time, and we're going to work individually, and we're going to get everyone's individual technique strong and up to par. So that way, when we do come back together, and we do get to be a choir again, everybody is as strong as they can be coming into a new year, into a new setting, and that's going to just make us even stronger as a whole. Because I think right now we're just going to have to focus on the individual voices. So that way, when we do get to come back as a whole, we haven't lost anything. We're only better for it. So,
if I can add to that, I think, as I've seen several voice teachers struggle through this and several teachers struggle through this. I mean, when we look at choir, when we look at singing, we think about like several different things. We think about vocal technique, we think about performance, stage presence, we think about the theoretical skills that go into that and how to learn a piece of music. When we're talking about lessons, a choir obviously is something that we cannot do online. And that's, I other than a virtual choir, obviously, but even then you can't really coach a choir online. You coach the individual voice. So I think all of a sudden the focus sort of shifts a little bit. And it shifts from a choir mentality to a vocal mentality. And specifically, like, how do we create the best musician, theoretically, stage presence, and vocally? So, and you may argue that, sound quality is not great right now. And I think that that's definitely true, but you can tell certain vocal inconsistencies and vocal issues through, mouth position, lip position, by looking at the student, and also, maybe hearing some of the timbre through the microphone. So, I hesitate when I see things like, when people say you cannot do choir over Zoom. I think that's true. You can't do choir over Zoom unless you do a virtual choir and it's all pre-recorded and whatever. But I do think that what you can do is voice lessons, and you can specifically focus on the voice. You can specifically focus on the stage presence, and you can specifically focus on the theoretical skills. And I think that's how you create a genuine experience. You don't try to keep doing something that doesn't fit. It's like putting a triangle into a square peg. You have to adapt, and you have to create new ways of continuing to sustain and grow musicianship of the students that are being taught. And in our case, like, that's really hard. There's no question that's really hard, and it's sort of forced on us right now because of coronavirus. But I do think that we can adapt, and I do think that as we continue to adapt, there will be better technologies to be able to do what we're looking for this to do. But I do think that this, particularly for choir, the priority shifts just a little bit. It doesn't become about primary choir singing. It becomes about the individual musician and how that sort of connects into something like a virtual choir.
One of the things about that too, thinking about shifting focus onto the private voice lesson and sort of that more soloistic style. When we say soloistic style, it's the same breath support, it's the same posture, it's the same all of that, but now we can focus on them as an individual. So in many ways, I feel like it's sort of, we can say that we're not teaching choir. In my mind, I feel like we still are. We're just teaching from a different perspective that's now honing in on each individual's strengths and weaknesses instead of the group's strengths and weaknesses, in a way that is more difficult to do in a setting where everyone's present at once. Because there's all, I mean, that's of course part of that curriculum, but being able to do this now with each student in a sort of isolated period, actually, I think, like, it excites me to see when the students do come back into that room and sing, how much it's grown while everyone's sort of done their own thing. That to me is really cool.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We have one last question from a parent saying, are you still going to be doing tryouts for varsity, Bethany, or will that wait till they go back to school?
Yes, we're gonna go ahead and do varsity tryouts. We're gonna do them through Zoom. I'll let them set up a conference time with me whenever that works for them. We'll be discussing that through our Google Classroom meeting board when that's going to be happening. But yes, we will be doing that. We're going to go ahead and just place the kids so that way the counselors don't have a nightmare of trying to place all the kids into whatever elective classes like the first week of school. So we're going to just go ahead with that. So yeah.
Absolutely. Very good. Well, just a big thank you to everyone who has joined us tonight. It's really been a privilege to talk about this, and such an exciting initiative that we're really proud of, and that I see as, this isn't a challenge. It's definitely a challenge to go to transition into this online model, but I do think it's going to be a really interesting challenge and not something that's going to be a bother. I look forward to seeing how we go through this. Just a reminder that next week we are doing a really awesome live stream called Compassionate and Effective Marketing During Worldwide Crisis, a guide to successful marketing. And that will be with one of our board members and USA Today's digital presence manager, Carson Drew Dorsey. And we are really excited to have her talk about sort of what's happening during COVID-19 and how, we are marketing things and the way that we sort of move forward. So stay tuned for that. And yeah, join us then next week, next Thursday at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. We will be here. Thank you, everybody, so much for being here and for taking the time. It's always great to be together, and hopefully we can see each other soon.
Thank you so much.
All right. See you soon.